Chosen one, pay close attention. The person your ex sent to spy on you just switched sides, and your ex still doesn't know it happened. Let that land for a second, because it's not a small thing. Somewhere back there, your ex sat down, got insecure, got desperate, and made a decision. They picked someone close enough to reach you, quiet enough not to raise suspicion, convincing enough to get in without you ever questioning it. And they sent that person straight into your life with one job: watch you, report back. Find something, anything that could be used against you later, something to prove the story they were already telling themselves in private. They didn't do it because they were confident. People who feel secure don't need spies. They don't need someone else's eyes, because their own peace is enough. But your ex wasn't at peace. They did this because some part of them already knew you were moving on, moving up, moving somewhere they couldn't follow anymore. And that knowledge terrified them more than losing you ever could. Losing you was already done. What scared them was watching you become fine without them, watching you build a life that didn't have a single space carved out for their return. So instead of facing that, instead of sitting with it like an adult, they outsourced their jealousy. They handed it to somebody else to carry, so they wouldn't have to hold it alone. Here's what they didn't plan for. The person they sent wasn't a weapon, they were a person. Weapons don't think. Weapons don't notice. Weapons don't sit with a feeling in their chest at 2 in the morning and ask themselves if what they're doing is actually right. But people do that, and people who spend enough time close to the truth eventually start seeing it, whether they were paid to see it or not, whether they were asked to see it or not. Somewhere between the first report and the last one that never got sent, something shifted. The story your ex told them about you stopped matching the person standing in front of them, day after day, unaware they were even being measured against a lie. That's the part your ex will never see coming. You didn't lose an ally the day they planted someone in your circle. The universe just handed you one, wrapped inside someone else's plan, disguised as a threat until it wasn't one anymore. And think about how quietly this all had to happen for it to work at all. Nobody announced a switch. Nobody sent you a message saying, "By the way, I was supposed to be watching you, but I'm not doing that anymore." Real loyalty shifts like this don't come with press releases. They come with small, invisible decisions made over and over again, in private, with no audience and no applause. That's exactly why your ex never saw it coming. They were looking for a dramatic betrayal, a big confrontation, some obvious sign that their plan had failed. What they got instead was silence, slowly hollowing out everything they thought they had built, one quiet choice at a time, until there was nothing left standing behind the story they were still telling themselves. Before we go further, hit like and subscribe. Not for me, for the message. Every time you do that, you're paying this story forward to the next chosen one who needs to hear it exactly when they need to hear it. Now let's break this down, piece by piece, chapter by chapter, and show you exactly how a spy became your most loyal ally, and why your ex is about to find out the hard way that some plans are built to fail from the very first day they're set in motion. Number 1. The day they said yes to watching you. Nobody agrees to spy on someone they respect. That's the first thing to understand about how this whole thing started. Whoever your ex recruited, they didn't walk in loyal to you, obviously, but they didn't walk in loyal to the mission either. Loyalty like that has to be built, and it wasn't built yet. They walked in curious, maybe a little flattered that someone trusted them with something that felt important, maybe a little unsure, but willing to go along with it because your ex made it sound so harmless. Just keep an eye on things. Just let me know how they're doing. Just tell me if anything changes. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that sounded like betrayal from the outside. That's how it always starts. Small asks dressed up as concern. Your ex didn't say, "Go destroy them." They said, "Just check in." They made surveillance sound like caring, made control sound like protectiveness, made suspicion sound like love that just needed a little more information to feel safe again. That's the oldest trick jealousy has ever used, and it works because it doesn't sound like what it actually is. And the person they picked, they believed it, at least at first. They thought they were helping someone who was hurting, someone who just needed reassurance. They didn't realize they were being used as a weapon, disguised as a favor, dressed up in the language of friendship. You didn't know any of this was happening. You were just living, working, healing, rebuilding, doing the ordinary things people do after something ends. The small daily things that don't feel significant in the moment, but add up to an entire life quietly getting put back together. You weren't performing for anyone. You weren't hiding anything, because you had nothing to hide. You were just you, unguarded, because you had no reason to think anyone was watching that closely. No reason to suspect that your ex's jealousy had grown legs and walked itself right into your circle. And that's exactly the problem for your ex. Because when someone goes in expecting to find a mess, a fraud, a person falling apart behind closed doors, and instead they find someone steady, someone kind, someone handling their life with more grace than the story ever gave you credit for, something breaks in the plan almost immediately. The spy didn't find a villain. They found a person quietly proving every rumor wrong just by existing normally, just by getting up and living an honest life with nothing to perform and nothing to hide. Your ex thought they were sending in a set of eyes. What they actually sent in was a witness, and witnesses, real ones, end up seeing everything, not just the narrow slice they were told to look for. Think about how much your ex was actually gambling on in that first moment of recruitment. They were betting that whoever they picked would see exactly what they wanted them to see, nothing more, nothing less. But real people don't work like cameras pointed in one direction. They notice context. They notice tone. They notice the small, human details that don't fit neatly into somebody else's script, no matter how convincingly that script was written. Your ex handed over a narrow lens and hoped it would stay narrow forever. It never does. Lenses widen the longer someone actually looks through them. Number 2, what they were told before they ever met you. Before this person ever paid real attention to your life, they were fed a version of you that wasn't true. Your ex needed a reason to justify the spying, some story that made the request feel reasonable instead of desperate, so they built one. You were probably painted as manipulative, unstable, dangerous somehow, someone who couldn't be trusted, someone who needed to be kept an eye on for everyone's own good. That's how jealousy recruits help. It never asks honestly, because honesty would expose it instantly. It asks through a carefully built story designed to make the request sound like concern instead of control. Think about that for a second. Before this person ever formed one real, independent opinion of you, they already had a script running in their head, written entirely by someone who was hurt and looking for a reason to feel justified in their own insecurity. That's not information. That's propaganda dressed up as a warning, and your ex handed it over like it was fact, like it had been tested and proven, when really it was just pain wearing the mask of caution. Here's what they didn't count on. People aren't as easy to program as they think they are. A story can plant a seed, sure, but it can't override what someone actually witnesses with their own 2 eyes over weeks and months of real, close observation. And the longer this person stayed near you, the harder it got to keep believing the version they'd been handed at the start. The story said you were cold. What they saw was you being kind to people who didn't even deserve it. The story said you were vindictive. What they saw was you letting things go that would have justified real anger. The story said you were the problem. Every single interaction quietly proved the exact opposite, one small moment at a time. That gap between what they were told and what they were actually seeing with their own eyes, that's where the first crack started to form. Small at first, a raised eyebrow here, a pause before reporting something because it didn't feel accurate anymore. A quiet decision to leave certain details out because sharing them suddenly felt like betraying something that never deserved to be betrayed in the first place. You never had to defend yourself to this person. You never even knew you needed to. You just kept being who you are, and being who you are quietly did all the defending for you, without you lifting a single finger. It's worth pausing on how backwards that entire setup really was. Your ex spent time building a narrative meant to protect themselves from the discomfort of admitting they were struggling with jealousy. Instead, that narrative became the exact thing that exposed them. Every detail they added to make the story more convincing became one more thing that eventually had to be checked against reality, and reality kept failing to confirm it. A lie built with that much effort should have been sturdy. Instead, it turned out to be the most fragile part of the entire plan. Number 3. The story that didn't match the person. At some point, every spy hits the same wall. The version of you they were sold stops making sense next to the version of you they're actually watching in real time. And that mismatch, once it's noticed, is impossible to ignore forever, no matter how hard someone tries to explain it away. Maybe it happened during something small. Maybe they watched you help someone who never helped you back and never would. Maybe they watched you stay calm during something that would have made most people explode with rage or bitterness. Maybe they overheard you defending your ex, even after everything, because you're not the kind of person who tears someone down just because they hurt you first. Whatever the specific moment was, it landed like a splinter under the skin. Small, easy to ignore at first glance, but impossible to stop noticing once it's there. They started asking themselves questions they weren't supposed to ask, questions that felt disloyal just to think. Why does this person seem nothing like what I was told? Why do they treat other people with more patience than the person who warned me about them ever showed anyone? Why does watching them feel less like surveillance and more like witnessing someone quietly rebuild their entire life with nothing but grace and consistency? Nobody talks about how uncomfortable it is to realize you were used to spy on someone who didn't deserve it. That discomfort doesn't fade on its own. It sits there in the chest, growing heavier every single time the truth and the story pull further apart from each other. And eventually, a person has to choose. Keep serving a lie because it's easier and requires no confrontation, or start quietly questioning the person who handed them that lie in the first place. You didn't orchestrate any of this. You didn't perform for an audience you didn't even know existed. You just lived honestly. And honesty has a strange, quiet way of exposing every lie sitting next to it, even the ones you never knew were there. There's something almost poetic about how little effort this took on your part. You didn't have to catch anyone in a lie. You didn't have to gather your own evidence or build your own case. You simply had to keep existing as yourself, day after ordinary day, and let the mismatch between the story and the reality do all the heavy lifting. That's the quiet advantage decent people have over manipulative ones without ever realizing it. The truth doesn't need defending when it's simply allowed to sit next to a lie long enough. Eventually, people can see which one is holding its shape and which one keeps shifting to survive. Number 4. The first crack, when the lie didn't fit anymore. There's always a moment, one specific moment, where pretending simply stops being possible. For the person watching you, that moment probably came quietly, without fireworks. Not a dramatic scene, not a big confrontation in someone's living room, just a private realization that hit somewhere between one report and the next, in the quiet space where nobody else was watching them think. This isn't adding up. And once that thought exists in someone's head, it doesn't leave on its own. It just sits there, waiting to be dealt with. Maybe it was something you said that had nothing to do with your ex at all. Some offhand comment about wanting peace instead of drama, about hoping things worked out for everyone, even if they didn't work out for you personally. Maybe it was something you did, some small act of decency that had zero audience and zero benefit to you, done purely because it was right, and because that's simply who you are. Whatever it was, it didn't fit the character your ex had described in such careful, damning detail. Villains don't behave like that. Manipulators don't behave like that. People who are supposedly the problem don't quietly choose grace when nobody is watching and nothing is gained. That's the thing about character. It shows up loudest in the exact moments nobody is grading you for. You weren't performing goodness for a spy you didn't even know was there. You were just being consistent. And consistency happens to be the hardest thing in the world to fake, and the easiest thing to notice once someone is paying close enough attention. The crack didn't close after that first moment. It spread, slowly, quietly, chapter by chapter. Every report started feeling heavier to write. Every check-in call from your ex started feeling less like a favor and more like an obligation nobody had properly consented to. The person who agreed to watch you for someone else's comfort started feeling the full weight of watching someone who never deserved to be watched at all. And weight like that has a way of refusing to sit quietly forever. Number 5. Every report that never got sent. Here's something your ex will never know unless it comes out entirely on its own. Somewhere in the middle of all this, the reports slowed down. Then they got vaguer, softer, shorter. Then some of them simply stopped being sent at all, quietly, without any announcement or explanation offered. Think carefully about what that actually means. Somebody who agreed to feed information back to your ex started deciding, entirely on their own, without permission or instruction from anyone, that certain things simply weren't worth sharing anymore. Not because they forgot, because they chose not to. They looked at something they had witnessed, something that could easily have been twisted into ammunition against you, and they made the deliberate call to protect it, instead of hand it over to someone who would only use it to cause harm. That's not neutrality. That's loyalty forming in real time, quietly, without announcement, without asking your permission because they never needed it in the first place. Loyalty like that doesn't wait around for gratitude or recognition. It just quietly acts, again and again, in small invisible ways nobody claps for. Think about how much discipline that actually requires. Every unsent message is a small risk on their part. If your ex ever noticed the gaps, ever asked directly why certain updates stopped coming, this person would have to answer for a choice they made entirely on their own, with no instructions and no cover story prepared. They took that risk anyway, quietly, over and over, because protecting you had quietly become more important than protecting themselves from an uncomfortable conversation. If you're feeling this pull right now, if something in this story feels like it's echoing a version of your own life, drop 77 in the comments. Let it be your marker, a signal that you're paying attention, that you know exactly what it feels like to be misjudged by someone who never bothered to actually look closely. And if this message is doing something real for you, consider dropping a super thanks. It keeps messages like this reaching the next person who desperately needs to hear it. Now let's keep going, because your ex is about to find out just how much they lost the moment they sent someone in to watch you, instead of simply trusting their own choices. Every unsent report, every softened detail, every quiet decision to leave something out, that's one small act of protection stacking on top of another. And stacked high enough, over enough time, small acts of protection quietly become something your ex never expected in 1,000 years. An ally standing firmly on your side of the line without you ever asking for one. Number 6. The moment they started protecting you without telling you. There's a real difference between simply not reporting something and actively protecting it. And somewhere in this story, that exact line got crossed without any dramatic announcement. This person stopped being a passive observer standing on the sidelines and became something else entirely. Someone actively managing what got back to your ex and what quietly never did. Someone choosing, on purpose, to shield you from information being twisted into a weapon aimed at your peace. You didn't ask for that. You didn't even know it was happening in real time. That's exactly what makes it real. Loyalty that has to be requested isn't loyalty at all. It's a transaction with strings attached. What this person gave you cost them nothing you offered, and absolutely everything they had to sacrifice on their own, privately, with no witnesses. Peace of mind with your ex. Comfort in a role they had already agreed to play. The easy, low-effort path of simply doing what they were originally told to do. They gave all of that up, quietly, for someone who didn't even know they existed as anything more than a name buried inside someone else's plan. Think for a second about the courage that actually takes. It's easy enough to defend someone who knows you're defending them, who can thank you for it, who can return the favor down the line. It's a completely different thing entirely to defend someone in the dark, with no audience watching, no thanks coming, no guarantee you'll ever even find out it happened at all. That's not convenience. That's conviction, plain and simple. And once someone starts protecting you without permission, without an invitation, without anything at all to gain for themselves, that's not a coincidence anymore. That's the universe quietly rearranging the exact pieces your ex thought they had, firmly under their control. Notice something important here, chosen one. This person didn't switch sides because you asked them to be loyal. You never even had the chance to ask, because you didn't know they existed as anything other than a stranger orbiting your life. That means the loyalty they built wasn't owed to you, wasn't negotiated, wasn't earned through some transaction where you gave something in return. It was freely given, entirely on their own terms, based purely on what they observed. That kind of loyalty tends to run deeper than the kind people build through obligation, because nobody forced it into existence. It simply grew, on its own, because the truth left it nowhere else to go. Number 7. Why silence became their cover. If this person had suddenly stopped talking to your ex altogether, it would have raised every red flag imaginable within days. So instead, they did something far smarter. They kept showing up, kept answering messages, kept playing the part, just convincingly enough to avoid suspicion, while giving less and less of anything real underneath the surface performance. That's a very specific kind of exhausting. Living a double loyalty, pretending fully on one side while quietly protecting on the other, watching your own words carefully so the wrong thing doesn't slip out and expose exactly where your true allegiance has already landed. Most people wouldn't have the patience for that kind of sustained tension. Most people would either fully commit to the original mission or fully walk away from it entirely. This person did neither. They stayed exactly in position and quietly changed what that position actually meant from the inside out. Your ex kept believing they had eyes and ears close to you, feeding them reliable information. What they actually had was someone running interference they couldn't see or measure, someone deciding, message by message, conversation by conversation, exactly how much truth got through and how much got quietly filtered out before it could do any real damage to your life or your peace. Isn't it strange how the people who think they're firmly in control are usually the very last ones to realize they aren't? Your ex still believes the story they built with such care is fully intact. They have absolutely no idea it's already been quietly hollowed out from the inside by the very person they trusted most to keep it standing upright. Number 8. The messages your ex kept waiting for. Somewhere out there, right now, your ex is probably still checking their phone constantly, still expecting updates that used to arrive easily and now come slower, vaguer, or sometimes not at all. And they don't fully understand why, at least not consciously. They tell themselves the person's just busy lately. They tell themselves it's nothing worth worrying about. But somewhere underneath that surface explanation, a small doubt is quietly starting to form, and doubt, once it exists at all, has a way of refusing to stay quiet for very long. That's the hidden price of jealousy, built entirely on control. It requires constant maintenance to keep running. It requires the spy to keep performing loyalty convincingly enough that the cracks never show through to the surface. But cracks always show eventually, inevitably, because nobody can fake genuine concern forever for someone they've secretly stopped believing deserves to be watched in the first place. You didn't do anything at all to cause this shift. You never even knew there was a shift happening to cause. You just kept being consistent, kept being decent, kept living a life that had absolutely nothing to hide. And that alone did more quiet damage to your ex's entire plan than any confrontation ever could have managed. Meanwhile, the messages that do go back, they're not what they used to be at all. Shorter, less detailed, conveniently missing exactly the kind of specifics your ex is hungry for. Not because there's nothing left to report, but because there's plenty to report. And this person has decided, quietly and permanently, that your ex simply doesn't get to have access to it anymore. Number 9. What they saw that your ex never wanted seen. Somewhere in all this time spent close to your life, this person saw something your ex never intended for anyone to see so clearly. Maybe it was how you talked about your ex, even now, without cruelty or bitterness creeping in. Maybe it was how you handled being hurt, without ever becoming someone who turns around and hurts other people back. Maybe it was simply watching you build something real and steady while your ex was busy trying to tear something down from a distance. Whatever it specifically was, it revealed a truth your ex spent enormous energy trying to hide from everyone, including themselves. That the real problem was never you, not even close. It was the fear driving someone to send another human being to spy on the person they once claimed to have genuinely loved. That's not something you have to point out loudly or prove with evidence. That's something people notice entirely on their own once they're close enough and paying attention long enough to let the pattern settle in. And once someone sees that clearly, fully, there's no unseeing it afterward. It reframes absolutely everything that came before. Every instruction your ex gave starts to look less like genuine concern and more like quiet, persistent control. Every "just let me know how they're doing" starts to sound less like curiosity and more like obsession wearing a friendly mask. And the person carrying out those instructions starts to feel less like a trusted friend doing a favor and more like a tool being used to manage someone else's untreated insecurity. Nobody stays loyal to a role like that once they truly see it for exactly what it is. Chosen one, this is the part your ex will never be ready for. The exact moment someone realizes they were sent to spy on entirely the wrong person. And here's something worth sitting with. That realization doesn't just change how this person feels about you, it changes how they feel about your ex, quietly and permanently. Once someone sees clearly that fear and control were driving the entire operation, they can't unsee that either. Every future request from your ex gets filtered through that new understanding. Every "just let me know" now sounds like exactly what it always was. And that shift in perception, once it happens, doesn't just protect you from this one moment. It protects you from whatever your ex might try next. Number 10. The night loyalty flipped for good. There's always a specific moment where quiet doubt finally turns into an actual, irreversible decision. For this person, it probably happened somewhere completely ordinary. Not a dramatic scene, not a big emotional speech, just a private moment where they looked back at everything they'd witnessed and made a call they knew they couldn't take back afterward. Maybe it was after watching you handle something genuinely difficult with more grace than they had ever seen from the person who originally sent them in. Maybe it was after quietly realizing how many chances you had given your ex that your ex conveniently never once mentioned to them. Maybe it was simply exhaustion, the accumulated weight of carrying two competing loyalties finally becoming too heavy to hold any longer, forcing a real choice between the version of you they were told to expect and the version of you they had actually, personally, come to know over time. Whatever the exact trigger was, that night marked the definitive end of one role and the quiet start of another. From that point forward, this person wasn't managing information for your ex anymore. Not really. They were managing it for you instead, whether you knew it or not, whether they ever told you directly or not. The mission changed completely. The loyalty changed completely, and your ex, still fully convinced nothing had shifted at all, kept trusting someone who had already quietly walked away from their side of the line entirely. You didn't recruit an ally that particular night. You earned one, simply by being exactly who you already were, without trying, without performing, without even knowing you were being watched that closely. Number 11. Why they couldn't go back. Once someone sees the truth clearly, fully, going back to comfortably pretending again is almost impossible to manage. That's the exact trap your ex accidentally built for themselves without ever realizing it. They needed this person to keep believing a story that no longer held up under any real scrutiny. And belief, once it genuinely cracks, doesn't simply reset itself just because someone desperately wants it to. Think seriously about what it would actually take for this person to go back now, at this point. They'd have to unsee everything they had personally witnessed with their own eyes. They'd have to convince themselves that the calm, decent, steady person they've been closely watching is somehow secretly the villain they were originally promised. They'd have to ignore their own judgment, their own eyes, their own conscience entirely, just to keep serving a plan that was never really about protecting anyone in the first place. It was always about controlling someone your ex was simply scared of losing for good. Nobody does that willingly once they've had enough time to think it all the way through. And this person has had plenty of that time. Every single day spent close to you was another day the real version of you quietly replaced the fictional one your ex had handed over right at the start. There's no version of this story where they go back to the very beginning. The beginning simply doesn't exist for them anymore. There's only forward from here, and forward means standing somewhere your ex never expected them to end up standing. Imagine trying to unlearn something you've watched with your own eyes for months. Imagine trying to convince yourself a person you've seen handle heartbreak with grace is secretly cruel, when every single moment you witnessed says otherwise. That's the impossible task your ex is unknowingly asking of this person every time they send another message, expecting the old loyalty back. It simply isn't there to give anymore, not because it was stolen, but because it was replaced, quietly, by something more accurate. Number 12. The panic your ex doesn't understand yet. Somewhere, right now, your ex is probably sensing that something is off, without being able to properly name it or explain it to themselves. Responses that used to come fast are now coming slow and delayed. Information that used to feel rich and detailed now feels thin and empty. And underneath all of it sits a growing unease that something they thought they fully controlled might not be under their control at all anymore. They don't know why yet, not consciously. They just know the temperature has changed somehow. And people who built their entire strategy around tight control absolutely hate not knowing why the temperature suddenly changed on them without warning. This is exactly the part where their own plan starts quietly working against them from the inside. The more they push desperately for updates, the more obvious their own desperation becomes to the very person they're pushing so hard. The more suspicious and anxious they act, the more this person's original decision to stay quiet gets fully confirmed as the right one to have made. Your ex is essentially proving, in real time, exactly why someone would choose your side over theirs without even realizing they're doing it to themselves. That's simply what happens when jealousy runs the entire operation instead of patience or trust. It always eventually exposes itself completely, usually right at the exact moment it's trying hardest to stay perfectly hidden from view. Number 13. The war your ex started and lost without knowing. Here's the part that should genuinely sit heavy for a second. Chosen one. Your ex started something real. They made a conscious decision to treat you like a threat that needed constant monitoring instead of a person who simply deserved basic respect and trust. And in doing that, they created the exact conditions for their own plan to fall apart entirely from the inside. One quiet decision at a time. They lost, and they don't even know the war is fully over yet. They're still operating like they have someone reliable in position, still trusting reports that have quietly stopped serving their original purpose, still believing the narrative they carefully built is fully intact when it's already been completely abandoned by the one person they needed most to keep believing in it. That's not a small loss to absorb. That's a complete, total collapse of the entire plan, and it happened without a single confrontation, without a single argument, without you ever having to say one word in your own defense to anyone involved. You didn't fight for this outcome. You didn't scheme or plot for it behind the scenes. You just kept living honestly, day after day, and honesty did exactly what it always does when given enough time and enough proximity to work. It quietly replaced the lie standing right next to it, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of the original story at all. There's a certain kind of quiet justice in that, chosen one. Your ex spent real energy building a case against you, recruiting help, managing a narrative, and all of it collapsed, not because someone fought back, but because nobody had to. The truth simply outlasted the effort it took to hide it. That's usually how it goes with plans built on insecurity instead of substance. They require constant upkeep to survive, and the moment that upkeep slips, even slightly, the entire structure starts sinking under its own weight. Number 14. Why the people around your ex started noticing too. Here's something else your ex never accounted for in their plan. Secrets like this rarely stay contained to just one person. The friend they used to spy on you didn't operate in a vacuum. They had their own circle, their own conversations, their own moments of hesitation that other people close to them started picking up on. A pause before answering a simple question about you. A refusal to pile on when your ex started venting again about how difficult you supposedly were. A quiet defense offered up in a group conversation where silence would have been so much easier and so much safer. People notice that kind of thing, even when they don't say anything about it out loud right away. And slowly, without any of them planning it or coordinating it, a small ripple started moving outward from the one person who had actually seen the truth up close. Somebody mentions offhand that maybe your ex is being a little unfair. Somebody else quietly stops agreeing so easily when your name comes up in conversation. Somebody else starts wondering, privately, why the person who was supposedly reporting back on you seems less and less interested in saying anything bad about you at all these days. Your ex built this entire plan assuming total control over the narrative, assuming the story would stay locked in exactly the shape they built it. What they didn't count on was the truth leaking sideways, through small gestures and small refusals, through the quiet body language of someone who had simply stopped being willing to lie convincingly anymore. You never had to correct a single rumor yourself. You never even had to know these conversations were happening at all. The truth did its own quiet work, spreading through the very network your ex built specifically to control you. Number 15. What happens when your ex finally figures it out? At some point, and it's usually only a matter of time, your ex is going to piece this together. Maybe it happens slowly, through a string of small inconsistencies that finally add up. Maybe it happens all at once, in one uncomfortable conversation, where the person they trusted finally stops pretending and says something honest for the first time in months. However it happens, it's worth thinking through what that moment actually looks like, because it's not going to look like victory for your ex. It's going to look like realizing the ground underneath them was never as solid as they believed. Think about what your ex will actually have to sit with in that moment. Not just that someone stopped reporting back to them, but that this person, someone they trusted enough to hand this responsibility to, looked closely at both sides of the story and chose you. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, out of what they actually witnessed with their own eyes over an extended period of time. That's not a small realization to swallow. That's a direct verdict on the entire narrative your ex spent so much energy building, delivered by someone who had every reason to simply go along with it and chose not to. Your ex will probably try to explain it away at first. They'll tell themselves the person got confused, got manipulated somehow, got too close and lost perspective. That's what people do when the truth is too uncomfortable to accept at face value. But explanations like that don't hold up for long, especially not to the person who actually lived through the observation firsthand. They know what they saw, they know why they made the choice they made, and no amount of after-the-fact reframing from your ex is going to convince them they imagined months of quiet, consistent decency. Here's the part that matters most for you in all of this. You don't have to be present for any of it. You don't have to watch your ex work through that realization, don't have to manage their reaction, don't have to offer any explanation or comfort or closure. That entire process belongs entirely to them now, playing out far away from your life, while you continue doing exactly what you were already doing before any of this started. Living, building, moving forward without needing their permission or their approval to do it. And maybe the hardest part for your ex to accept won't even be losing the information. It'll be realizing that the version of events they were so sure of, the one they repeated to themselves at night to justify everything, was never the real one. People don't easily recover from finding out they were the villain in a story they cast themselves as the victim in. That reckoning, whenever it arrives, isn't something you need to orchestrate or witness. It happens entirely on its own timeline, in rooms you'll never be in, carried by a truth you never had to raise your voice to defend. Number 16. The second person your ex tried to recruit. Here's something worth sitting with for a moment, chosen one. People who operate on jealousy rarely stop at just one attempt. If the first spy started slipping, started going quiet, started giving less than they used to, your ex likely noticed that shift eventually, even if they couldn't fully explain it to themselves. And when people like that sense a tool going dull, their instinct usually isn't to examine themselves. Their instinct is to look for a sharper tool instead. Maybe there was a second attempt. Maybe there was a passing comment to someone else in your circle, a similar small ask disguised as concern, a similar invitation to just keep an eye on things. And maybe that attempt landed differently this time, because word travels quietly among people who actually care about each other. Maybe the first person, the one who had already switched sides in their own heart, mentioned something in passing to protect you further, without ever making it dramatic or obvious. A simple, "Hey, don't worry about what they say, they're just going through something," said to the right person at the right moment, was sometimes enough to make a second recruitment fail before it even properly started. Your ex assumed loyalty could simply be replaced the way you replace a broken tool, quickly and without consequence. What they didn't count on was the fact that decency tends to travel. One person choosing truth over convenience doesn't just protect you directly, it quietly raises the cost of anyone else agreeing to do the same thing your ex originally asked for. Every future attempt gets a little harder, a little more transparent, a little more obviously desperate to anyone paying attention. That's not something you had to engineer. That's simply what happens when the truth starts moving on its own, without needing your permission or your involvement at all. Number 17. Why you never had to confront anyone. Here's a truth that might be sitting somewhere in the back of your mind right now, chosen one, and it deserves to be said out loud. You never had to sit anyone down. You never had to demand answers, stage a confrontation, or force some dramatic reveal where everyone finally admits what really happened. And that's not a coincidence. That's not something you settled for because you lacked the courage to ask harder questions. That's the entire point of how real vindication actually works. Confrontation gives the other side a stage. It gives them a chance to perform regret, to rehearse an explanation, to twist the timeline just enough that the blame gets shared, instead of landing where it actually belongs. People who are used to managing narratives are good at surviving confrontations. They've had practice. What they haven't had practice surviving is silence combined with time, because silence gives them nothing to push against and nothing to perform for. You didn't need a scene. You needed exactly what you already had, which was consistency, patience, and enough time for the truth to do its work without interference. The ally who switched sides didn't need a dramatic exit either. They simply stopped serving a lie, quietly, one decision at a time, and let the natural consequences unfold on their own schedule. That's not weakness on your part. That's precision. Loud confrontations end arguments. Quiet consistency ends entire narratives, permanently, without leaving your enemies anything solid to grab onto or twist into their favor later. Ask yourself honestly what a confrontation would have actually accomplished, even in the best-case scenario. Your ex would have had a chance to apologize on the spot, perform regret in front of you, and walk away having controlled exactly how the ending felt. Instead, they get nothing. No closure handed to them, no final conversation to rehearse, no moment where they get to shape how this story wraps up. They just get silence, stretching out indefinitely, while the truth keeps working quietly in the background without their input. Number 18. The ally you never had to recruit. This is where it all lands, chosen one. You never asked for protection. You never even knew you needed it in the first place. But somewhere along the way, someone sent to work against you quietly decided to work for you instead, not because you convinced them of anything, not because you performed for them in any way, but simply because you were consistent enough, decent enough, real enough for long enough, that the truth eventually became impossible for them to keep ignoring. That's not luck. That's exactly what happens when your character doesn't need an audience to hold up under pressure. People who watch you closely enough, even the ones originally sent to find your flaws and report back on them, end up finding your integrity instead, almost against their own will. And integrity, once it's been witnessed clearly and repeatedly over time, tends to earn a kind of loyalty nobody ever had to formally ask for. Your ex thought they were placing a weapon quietly inside your life. What they actually did, without realizing it, was hand you a witness, someone who now knows the truth from the inside out, someone who chose your side entirely without being asked to, someone your ex can no longer fully trust the way they used to just months ago, all because they badly underestimated exactly who you really are underneath the surface. You didn't need to expose anyone publicly. You didn't need to confront anyone directly. You just needed to keep being yourself, quietly and consistently, long enough for the truth to do what it always eventually does: win on its own terms, in its own time. There's a lesson buried in all of this that reaches further than just this one situation. Chosen one. The people who send others to spy, to monitor, to manage, they're always betting on you being exactly who they claim you are. Every single time, that bet only pays off if you're actually the person they described. And every single time someone chooses jealousy over trust, they hand the universe one more chance to prove them wrong. You didn't ask for this particular lesson, but you've been handed the proof anyway, quietly, patiently, exactly when it mattered most. So let your ex keep believing they still have full control over this story. Let them keep waiting for updates that come slower and thinner every single time. You don't need to chase that story down or correct a single piece of it yourself. The universe already handled the correction for you, quietly, patiently, and completely permanently, without you spending a single ounce of energy fighting for it. If this one hit somewhere real for you, chosen one, hit like, subscribe, drop your 77 in the comments right now, and share this with someone who needs to hear that the truth always, eventually, finds its way home, no matter how long it takes to get there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, and goodbye.